Hey, Simon.
I'm not that far yet.
I was thinking actually yesterday when Alex was on stage with Alexa that Alex and I used to present together, and I've been so my job's been taken over by a machine. But I found a new sidekick. So his name is Simon, not Alex.
All right, so I'll leave it up to you
Thank
guys.
you so much. So I feel really lucky this morning to be able to be having the conversation about hospitality and guest experience at this conference. And I feel especially lucky to be having this conversation with Simon, who's someone that I just have so much admiration for in this industry. And part of what I love about Simon is that he's someone with a deep, a long history in this industry, and he's run a huge company and has the operational experience to back up, being on stage and being a thought leader in this industry. But he's also someone who hasn't remained stale. So he's someone who's always innovative and looking for what's the next thing in the industry. He's someone who has a huge vision for the industry, and so that combination I think is really rare and quite a precious resource for us in the vacation rental industry. So thank you so much for
thank you,
joining
for
me
the
on
flowers.
stage. And one of the things that I love about you is that in our industry, sometimes events like this and sometimes the conversation can be really focused on the business aspects of the industry. So how are we doing websites? How are we marketing? How are we handling distribution? We talk about SEO and all of those kinds of things. But what gets lost in the conversation sometimes that I worry about is coming back to really the essence of why we're all in the business in the first place, which is guests who show up at millions of properties around the world to stay for a vacation or a business trip or whatever it is. And so I appreciate that you're always someone who keeps that conversation alive in our industry. And so I wanted to ask you first, how do you distinguish between guest experience and hospitality? Are those the same things? Are they different?
Well, first of all, I think hospitality is something new that we're using as a word in our industry. I mean, it was more, we're coming from a short-term accommodation, like vacation rental to start off with. Actually, the industry has been older than the hotel industry, right? Which we sort of has been created in the 40s. And interesting enough, now we all talk about hospitality, and I quickly want to open that up. And why is that, right? And when I was running one of the largest property management companies in Europe, we were we had the first opportunity to integrate with Booking.com, and that was in 2007, which HomeAway gave a trigger, but there was a listings business. We were an XML bookable business, which Darren and Jeff loved a lot, and then we started that. And I remember when we integrated our properties into Booking.com, first of all, I had to double my call center, right? Because nobody understood vacation rental because we were addressing hotel guests, right? Which is totally different, and hotel guests have a different expectation. So I had to double my call center because everybody called and wanted to understand where to get the keys and where is the pool salt water, can I bring my pet, and all this stuff, which I had no clue about. So it was a nightmare, right? And also for Booking at the time, it was a nightmare. They were like, what? You booking Saturday to Saturday? I mean, not by night. So no, we can't do that. We do Saturday to Saturday. So it sort of came from there. And the hospitality, so now we're addressing a lot more guests who used to come from the hotels and who are experiencing hotels, and now they're experiencing our product, and therefore hospitality comes in. So we'll call that the convergence from the hotel guests into vacation rental, and now we have service departments, and now we call this all hospitality. It took us a long time, and it's not that old yet. So I think hospitality, for me, is sort of the foundation that is expected because of the people who come from the hotel industry. And that's, for me, hospitality is the foundation. Then the guest experience is what comes on top, right? So the hospitality is just the basic services of finding the key behind the bushes, right? and get yourself into a property and sort of the basic stuff, right? That's hospitality. And then the guest experience, that everything goes around the property, what you experience while you're in destination, is for me the guest experience which comes on top.
Which would be things like?
Guest experience? I mean, it was interesting. I had an interesting conversation with Sasha last night about what's happening to this industry. And and how guests review their experiences. And if you look at hotel reviews, it's like a two-liner, right? It's like the receptionist was a pain in the neck, but the bedroom was clean. If you look at vacation rental reviews, they're like sometimes this long and say, we had the best time of our lives with our family. We had an amazing experience. The kids loved the pool in the morning when we all had breakfast and all this stuff. And this is what I'd call guest experience. I mean, in a hotel, which is commoditized in a way, right? If it's not a boutique hotel or something special, is we are not commoditized. But we need to make the best with what we have in order to create this experience that is different to the hotels. And that's what I call guest experience, when they write all about what they've had, bring the emotions out on, you know, on what they've experienced. And I think the guest experience is endless. And we have a huge opportunity in our industry to build on that, right? Because we work with individual units, we work with individual products. We're not standardized. The curtains are the same, the beds are the same, the bed linen is the same. No, it's not. It's all different. And I think that's something we can extremely leverage to build out this guest experience. And it actually becomes a swear word, right? Everybody talks about its guest experience. You know, even Alessandro said before at Booking.com, saying, you know, we want to do the most to deliver guest experience, right? This is Booking.com. What do you do for guest experience? Maybe during the booking process, but you guys should have screamed at him saying, what are you saying, Alessandro? We're delivering the guest experience. You only deliver the booking and a good experience to make the transaction. So don't let that out of your hands.
Part of what the topic is about today is whether or not hospitality can scale and guest experience can scale. So in my world, you know, I know a lot of people from the Airbnb world who started with one property, and then, you know, it's one of the things that Airbnb has meant both for people who are hosts and who've gone into property management and guests, is it's opened up sort of this, you know, this new product to people that weren't typically thinking about it. So I have a lot of people in my life and a lot of customers who started with one property, decided that this was something that they were really good at and that they really loved, and so now they're scaling to lots of properties. We have one customer who started with about 50 and they're close to 350 now. So the things that you were able to do for guests initially when you were, you know, had one property or 5 or 10 become difficult to scale. We have there are lots of things that we do for our guests, but if we had 100 properties, that would be much more difficult to do. So can guest experience, can hospitality scale, as, you know, for those people in the audience who started small and they're getting big and they're still wanting to provide, you know, something that's bespoke and good for guests? Is it?
I mean, we're only 10 minutes into the chat. And you're already asking me the $100 billion question. That's not really fair at all. But I try to answer it without conflicting with all my involvements as well. I mean, first of all, my question back to you first is, what is scale for you?
Well, scale for me is being able to, I mean, when I think of hospitality, and part of, you know, the thing that I really love about this business, the reason why I've stayed in this business once I found it 6 years ago, is I love the human exchange of hospitality. And I think there's a lot of power in that. So when I think of hospitality and being able to scale as a property manager, I think about, how do you make guests who stay with you still feel welcomed? How do you make them still feel special? And so that's what I think about when I think of hospitality.
Let's talk about it from the property management standpoint first. I mean, first of all, we've just seen a transaction for a Wyndham portfolio in Europe that was paid for more than $1 billion. So obviously there's private equity interest to make such acquisition. We have some other players in the US like Vacasa Turnkey and others who want to scale globally very fast. And let's talk about this first, and then we'll talk about the guest experience afterwards. I've been in this industry for 15 years, and we had 25,000 properties. We had 50 at the end in Europe because of an acquisition. But at the end of the day, building global scale is going to be super hard, and probably not going to happen for many, many different reasons. I've been focusing on this question literally for 15 years, and still today, I don't have the right answer. I mean, we're talking about a lot of different models now. So either you acquire And I think, let's talk about this first. So acquiring, you know, when you start consolidating by acquiring property managers, I just conducted a very large US study for a private equity firm in London, and I interviewed a lot of very important industry leaders, about 30, and I said, you know, what's happening here? And they said, look, for every property manager that is being acquired, 5 more pop up. So it's like mushrooms, right? Now the private equity industry has raised massive price expectations. So the prices are totally gone through the roof, which have absolutely no justification in terms of acquisition. So you know, any of you who want to sell, I'm more than happy to assist you. But you know, I think you need to be careful in terms of what you expect. Why? So a lot of them are now trying, you know, Hostmaker, like you have companies who want to go urban, you have one company go leisure, and everybody wants to go become global and everything else. For me, more and more, people want to build franchises, okay? What do you franchise? What is really your USP to franchise it? Is it ultimately the brand, right? Can you create a McDonald's in this industry? Well, I doubt it. And why do I say that? So I think building scale on an economical standpoint, building scale is going to be super, super tough for one big reason. Our business is hyper local because that's the asset, okay? So let's think about this for a minute. What is our asset in this industry? What is the asset? It's our relation to the owner. It's trust. That's our asset. We have no more than that. Of course, some of you might own your own property, so that's cool, so you have a lot more control. But ultimately, our let's say, ancient industry is still based on this trust, and that's an asset. That's the only asset we have.
So the best chance that people would have would be if there's someone who wants to scale globally. It sounds like you need good process management and you need a sort of framework for how you're going to run your business, but it's really still always going to be about local relationships on the ground, both with the owner and with
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
providers.
we need to build standards, there's no doubt, but then I'm talking about the foundation of hospitality, right? So what I said first is that for me, building standards in terms of, you know, key handling, check-in, check-out processes, cleaning, that stuff, I think that's for me the hospitality layer, right? So that's where we can definitely do a lot in building more standards.
Yeah.
Also with ratings, for example, whatever it might be, I think that's what we can do.
As an industry.
Yes,
Yep.
for sure, and we need to do a lot more. I mean, that's what I'm preaching all the time. And yes, I know quality, everybody says, you know, we know that we need quality. Well, I'm not too sure if you really know that you need quality. And let me give you a little example. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people here, most of you renting a place. I don't know a single conversation that I had in the last, let's say, 36 hours where a person said to me, everything is 1,000,000% perfect in my apartment that I'm staying in Como. Not a single person.
Let's find out. Who's staying in a vacation rental and had a perfect experience?
Perfect.
Okay, a few hands. Good.
Well, that's
good,
probably
good.
their own properties.
Good. But it's true.
So you know, I had an interesting experience from Sasha and Vanessa. You know, they came from Rentals United with their team, and they booked an apartment with 3 bedrooms. But actually, you had to walk through all the bedrooms to get to the bathroom.
That's awkward.
So, you know, and you're all laughing. And then people say, we don't need to talk about quality, we have that under control. No, we don't. I mean, come on, it's not really cool. I mean, we're all good friends in our industry.
Yeah.
We love each other, go jogging and whatever. But I mean, there's a limit, right? So
Right.
and I'm still Simon, I'm not Alex. So. You know, one thing I was thinking about, interesting enough, you always have good thoughts under the shower, right? So this morning I was thinking, okay, we're going to talk about this industry and this hospitality and this guest experience. And I think one thing we should do mandatory for every owner who rents out a property to stay a week in his vacation rental, or let's do it a weekend, right? Let's do it a weekend is enough. But at least 2 nights he should spend in there, and don't get pizza from the corner, cook.
Yeah.
And make a meal and shower and experience it. If we have that as a prerequisite in our industry, our standards will rise so quickly. I mean, again, and I don't want to sound like a nag, because I love this industry and I love the old chairs, the new chairs. It doesn't matter, it's the experience. But you have a shower in the morning and there is nowhere to put your soap. There is not a shelf in the shower. I mean, my day is ruined. Because then the thing falls down, the shower is tiny. Oh, it's just awful. And and everybody laughs and says, yeah, that's true. Well, why don't we do it? So make your owners stay in their properties for a weekend, lock them in, and then then it needs to rain, there's an umbrella. All of a sudden it all works, right?
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, Antonio told me this morning, the plug in the bathroom didn't work, and you know how particular he is with his hair, so he couldn't blow dry, so he had to sort of squeeze around the corner because the plug was outside in the hallway.
I have
mean,
to be honest, when he was
on.
telling us that story, I thought, you blow dry your hair?